my God. Acres Diamond Hole. Holy something. Dude. Holy.
Oh my God.
You want to get something in front of the door? Bro, yeah. Bro.
Yeah.
More video taken by frightened students up at Michigan State University. That was late Monday evening as they noticed scores of police officers with all kinds of huge guns running to one particular location as they found out there's a mass shooter on campus yet again. Michigan State University Deputy Chief Chris Rozman later spoke about what was going on, a little bit on the victims, and again, what happened with this particular gunman who decided to run up here and do this yet again in America. Let's watch.
We can confirm that all 3 deceased were MSU students. We can also confirm at this time that all 5 of the injured victims at the hospital were also MSU students. The suspect in this case was located at approximately 11:35 p.m. in the city of Lansing. The suspect is deceased due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We have previously confirmed that he was 43 years old. He's a male. His name is Anthony. Last name is McCrae, M-C-R-A-E. Anthony Dwayne McCrae is a 43-year-old male.
They identified that some of the victims, well, all of the victims, whether deceased or injured in this shooting, were all Michigan State students, of course, as he targeted them on campus. A few more details of this, as they also showed a picture of that suspect, which actually they did determine was the shooter later on, and killed himself walking through hallways. But these shootings occurred at Berkeley Hall and the nearby MSU Student Union building, along Grand River Avenue on the north end of MSU's campus near downtown East Lansing. Law enforcement agencies were working to determine a motive in the campus slayings, is what that same police chief was saying. We're unaware of any affiliation that the suspect had to the university, he said. Rozman later added, we have absolutely no information about what the motive was, and I can't even imagine what the motive may be. Of course, they're still trying to figure this whole thing out. It was just last evening. So maybe even at this point, they've had more information as far as what the motive could have been. You see random headlines here and there, and it takes a minute to really try to determine what is this real and what is it's fake. But they said things like he was upset about family issues, something about his mother, things like that. Who knows? But actually, who cares? He had guns in his hand. And he ran up on the campus and did yet another one of these things. Now, as this goes down, of course, we realize people talk about we're failing our children. And we talk about the next generation. We want to have them inherit this country and our riches the way that we would like them to. Many of them are not inheriting anything. And actually others continue to see this go down over and over again in front of them. So it's not surprising that some of these folks have been victimized again. This one particular student has been through this before, and they went through it again. Watch this.
It is almost 1 a.m. and I am currently directly across the street from where the shootings at Michigan State occurred. I am 21 years old, and this is the second mass shooting that I have now lived through. 10 years and 2 months ago, I survived the Sandy Hook shooting. And when I was crouched in the corner in school in Newtown, Connecticut on 12/14/12, I was hunched in the corner with my classmates for so long that I actually got a PTSD fracture in my L4 and L5 in my right lower back. I now have a full-blown PTSD fracture that flares up anytime I am in a stressful situation or anything occurs that's aggressive like that. The fact that this is the second mass shooting that I have now lived through is incomprehensible. My heart goes out to all the families and the friends of the victims of this Michigan State shooting. But we can no longer just provide love and prayers. It needs to be legislation. It needs to be action. It's not okay.
Oh, they're not gonna wanna hear that. So sadly, this particular student, again, as they pointed out, were at Sandy Hook over 10 years ago, experienced that massacre, survived that, and is going through it yet again. You would think this is a rare thing, and maybe just that person's the one who went through this whole thing. Let's take a look at this tweet from Swedish Car 850, who apparently he also identified as a former Michigan State alum. They tweeted this out. What does it say about a country when you have footage of scared Michigan State University students in the aftermath of a mass shooting, only to notice that one of them is wearing a sweatshirt commemorating the mass shooting they survived at their high school? And no, Sandy Hook was the elementary school up in Connecticut. Oxford Strong is what's on that young student's shirt there, referencing the Oxford High School shooting that was just late 2021 in Michigan as well. There are more kids that have dealt with this. We don't know specifically if that student actually went to the school, because there was a lot of shirts that went out about this in support of that. But there was another that did. Yes, another. Let's go to those details. After the briefing, Local 4 spoke with Andrea Ferguson, whose daughter is a Michigan State University student and an Oxford High School graduate who survived that 2021 Oxford school shooting, is what her mother said. I never expected in my lifetime to have experienced 2 school shootings. There's several kids that are our daughter's friends with that are going through the same thing. She said her daughter was across campus getting on a bus after class when she started getting texts about that shooter. She had just ended class and hopped on a bus and went across campus and called me. And while we were on the phone, all of a sudden she started getting text messages, is what her mom said. It was like reliving Oxford all over again. Ferguson's daughter just started attending Michigan State this semester, just got there, had probably been there a month or so, I think is what they mentioned. And lastly here, Ferguson's daughter graduated from Oxford in 2022 and said that, and she said they were very happy to say goodbye to that year, and they were really looking forward to this school year. But now it's just another hurdle to get over, is what Ferguson said. There's a lot of devastating things here. They've lost 3 students and another 5 were severely hurt, and they were saying we don't know what the status of what those other students may be with those injuries. But no, then we got people that are re-traumatized over and over again that have survived this. We talk about survivor's guilt and just the trauma of seeing your classmates and friends dying in front of you. But these folks now have to do it over and over again. And what will the politicians say? Thoughts and prayers, Waz.
Yeah, I think the saddest part is how utterly unremarkable this is. You talk about Sandy Hook, that was 10 years ago. We couldn't even rattle off all of the events or accounts of mass shootings that have happened since. Obviously, anytime somebody gets murdered, a loss of life is tragic, but I think it's especially tragic when it happens to young people who haven't even gotten a chance to live a full life in themselves. You know, thinking about the families right now, the kids who at some point have to continue their education at a place where they've literally been traumatized and their lives were on the line. That's really the saddest thing. And you know, I've said it once and I'll say it again. I just feel like the people who will really love our guns in this country, to them, they see this as the cost of doing business. Every now and again, a person who they describe as a quote unquote lunatic or, you know, mentally deranged or whatever kind of person is gonna haul off and shoot a bunch of people. But that's just the cost of doing business in the good old red, white, and blue. It's allegedly our God-given right to have the ability to shoot people dead in an instant. And so these things will continue on because the people who feel most passionate about it feel like this is a justifiable cost.
Yeah, there's a couple hurdles to get over if you're gonna try and do something about it the way us libs want something done. It should be in trying to figure out how to actually lessen the number of guns in the streets in folks' hands, hoarded up in people's garages, given to them back after they've committed assaults and crimes and domestic violence and previous shootings, all that stuff. That should be the hard part. How do we lessen those numbers? For some reason, the hard part here is convincing enough people that students, and then in other cases, children, young students in school, in malls, grocery stores, churches aren't murdered. And in fact, 80-year-olds too, as you mentioned off the top. Yeah, it's tragic when children lose their lives. It's tragic when anyone does, but we're not protecting any of those folks. We don't have any plans of it because, again, the money.
And by the way, Jayar, and I'm sorry to interject here, but this is by design. This is a man-made issue. This isn't some phenomenon happening in nature. And the reason why we know this, there are other nations, other countries where essentially there is no gun violence. Nobody dies from guns. You think of a place like Sweden or a place like Japan even, where it just doesn't happen. They've legislated this problem out because the people over there understand that, like, oh, like the fun or the whatever, the right to own a gun, the cost associated with a society, just replete and infested with millions upon millions of handguns, is just too much of a cost to bear in human life, human suffering. And so they legislated that stuff out, and people don't die from guns there. And we're not talking about, places where there are these totalitarian regimes where, people have no civil liberties and a government can just go in and choke them to death. No, these are places, often those societies are like ours. People are free to come and go as they please. They don't live in repressive police states, authoritarian states, and there's no gun deaths, right? Because everybody's in agreement that it's just not worth it. All the human suffering and loss of human life. But here, that's not the case. Our citizenry is one, at least a sizable portion of that citizenry is one that thinks that these gun deaths are justifiable because law-abiding gun owners exist, and we need to respect their rights more than everybody else's right not to be shot at.
It's weird because that's the one line that they're willing to cross. I mean, maybe there's several others, but when it comes to the pro-life stances of all that, it doesn't happen for guns because they've been paid not to do that. Instead, we've talked about, many folks have talked about the shooter here as well. Let's go to those images again of him walking through the hallways and also his mugshot here. I won't go to the super details, but apparently he was also on probation at one point. The Ingram County prosecutor pointed that out. How back in 2019 he had gun possession charges, didn't have the right permits for it. It was taken away, served some time, got back out, and was let out of his probationary period, and back to this now again. That was back in 2019 when he was arrested. That last mugshot here, you guys, from him. And the focus of that part of the conversation then will be I've seen it and it's not just random commenters on the internet somewhere. These are pundits, these are talkers, these are folks with 10s and 15 and 20,000 followers, up to 100,000 followers. I don't know who some of these people are, but there's a lot of folks having conversations about, are you guys ready to talk about this as a black man? No, we never talk about how it's a black or a white guy or any of that stuff, unless we find those motivations behind it being, he shot up a bunch of folks at an LGBTQ club. He shot up a bunch of folks at a church and said white power beforehand, all that stuff. But whatever the reason is, if those idiots didn't have the access to these kinds of guns and these kinds of capacity magazines to do this type of stuff, I don't care what the hell color they are. The same people are getting murdered over and over and over again, those ones without guns. And lastly, they also say if those students at Michigan State were just armed, this could have ended. Did you hear those 3 or 4 guys in that dorm room, wherever they were, talking about what's happening when they saw hordes of police running by and they went, oh my God, that sounds like someone who's ready to pull out a gun and go to shooting at someone they don't know where they are or what they're doing or what they have. Doesn't make any sense to believe that that is something that could stop some of these, to put more guns in the hands of more people who have no interest in holding on to guns, waiting for the next guy to shoot when they've got chemistry books in their hands. So tired.
I mean, yeah, this whole idea about the race of the guy, nobody ever invokes people's race unless the thing was racially motivated. People's beliefs, if there's, if there's evidence that it was motivated by some sort of racial or other kind of animus or bias, right? If this guy is just your run of the mill angry at everybody and dealing with mental issues and shot up a school, I mean, that's just what it is. Like if he had shown up to like a tuna casserole convention and shot the whole thing up, I'd be like, all right, it might be relevant that this dude was black and he did this. But that's not what happened here. And I think it speaks. Another part of it, to just put the racial part of it aside, I think just the school part is just wild, right? School is supposed to be the safest place that any young person could be at, and it's just crazy that these safe havens get turned into places of mass bloodshed, and I think that's an unfortunate and tragic part of all of this as well.
Also, what I have noticed before we end this here is I haven't looked as closely, but I'm not sure what many politicians who are in support of these types of massacres are saying today. And in fact, I feel like outlets and journalists and reporters are probably about tired of asking them the same questions every 3 days when something like this happens. So are you ready now? Do you acknowledge yet that we're flooded with guns and this is the problem? Because we know the answer is already going to be no, 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 no. Those gun lobbyists have already lined my pockets. I'm good. I actually don't give a good hot damn about those lives. Didn't you hear that already? I said it 20 years ago. It continues. Let's take this first break, you guys. Yeah, that one ate up this whole blog. A few of y'all's comments from this first. Also, I've got many friends that also attended Michigan State. I graduated high school up there. And I, as far as thoughts and prayers, my concern and the thoughts I've had for what they've been probably going through this whole time, it doesn't do anything to help them out. It doesn't do anything to help out the next time. And we had the thoughts and prayers for after Oxford, still in Michigan. Did it help here? I say it every time. Is it gonna help when the next one happens? Because it will. Just saying.